Hey, you're in the wrong seat, bro.
Ah, what did I say? First, seating's first come, first serve, right?
That's right. Well, hello, everybody. It's Sunday again. That's good and bad. Means it's the end of the weekend, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's a good thing we made it to another Sunday, but tomorrow's
Yep.
Monday. All right, let's see who is. Let's see if I can see the chat. Oh, there it is. It was hidden on me. Let's see who all we got here. Uh, while we wait on everybody to get in, so nobody's fussing at us about running off and leaving them. Hello, Chuck. Jody, how are you? Welcome back. Lynch Reptiles. Hello, sir. Ma'am. Whichever. Samuel. Mike. What's up, neighbor? Sam says he's trying to learn Fusion 360. That's a
Very
steep
nice.
learning. That's a steep learning curve. Just keep beating at it. That's what I do. Uh, Northern Michigan. They South Canadian as well. Arkansas, Chilton County, Alabama, right around the corner somewhere. Ozark, Alabama. That's not too far. Mark, welcome back, sir. Gordon Gregory, Sunny, Nebraska. Roger, let's see. Robert Lowe, how are you, sir? Lakeside Streams. It's getting to be a lot of people in here. Samuel, David Allen. That's that guy with a good name. Uh, Jim, San Marcos, Texas, Illinois. Wow. Yeah. What's up, Don? How are you? Sandy. Uh, hmm. Okay, guys, there's just a lot. But welcome, everybody. Glad y'all decided to join us today. It's polar opposites. Here, it's kind of cool, but it's comfortable outside. And Steve's wearing a hoodie and had a heater on when we started this. So,
It yeah, it has been so we've got our roller coaster weather and it was, nice and toasty warm earlier this week and of course as the weekend approaches, it gets cold. Very windy the past couple days. I mean, yesterday I was going to try to do some video recording and I mean, it was pushing on my garage doors. It was just making a racket out here. So windy. I can't complain though. I know some people up to the north and to the east of me, they got this wind and cold and snow. We were spared the snow down here in southern Minnesota. So I won't complain too much, but man, I could be done with this wind.
yeah. Yeah, well, I see we got some more folks from Alabama down there, Clay County, not bored. Lake something. I'm not even going to try to say that. Florida. Uh, and Cincinnati. Acrylic Memory said he got his Shapeco 5
Very
Pro and put
cool.
it together in 3 hours, but didn't get the VFD yet. See, I had right the opposite. My VFD showed up, or no, wait a minute. No, mine showed up, and then it was like the next day the VFD showed up. So maybe you'll have that same luck. I almost went ahead and just put a router on mine, but it was just too much to do all the cabling and everything. But you
Yeah.
you will definitely like the VFD acrylic, and I will tell you the question that I had when I bought it was, do I need something to turn my dust collection on and off? Because I didn't know that it would, because it being the controller, I thought would be pulling power even when it was the spindle was off, but that wasn't the case. I plugged that thing into a relay and it operates the dust collection perfectly. Which I'm looking at upgrading my dust collection, negotiating something. So
Very nice.
hopefully here
Very
soon,
nice.
I'll have something a little quieter because the machine's relatively quiet, but the dust collection it will give you a headache.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even yeah, so you've got an air cooled spindle. You could get a little bit quieter if you had a liquid cooled. But when you've got any sort of dust collection going on, it's gonna that's gonna trump any noise reduction from air cooled to liquid cooled. So
See, I don't know that because I can hear the bit like cutting into the material more than I can hear the spindle. Like if you raise the thing up off of the material so that it's not engaging material, it's like you can't really hear it. I have
yeah,
to look at it to see if the bit's spinning or not. And luckily, they put like a little dot on the nut so that you can actually see when it starts spinning and when it
yeah.
stops.
Well, yeah, there is just a little bit more noise in the air cooled ones because it is pushing air through there to cool it down. It's not a lot, and when you're talking about the noises of the bit going through material and your dust collection, it's usually negated by that because those are going to be louder.
Yeah. Well, so far, so good. Now the wind is not known for being quiet by no means, but now if you're talking about some CFM, it does generate some CFM.
Well, there are a lot of people who move it out. They'll have like another room for it and they'll just pipe it in, and they get kind of crazy about it. For me, you know, a shop or a dust collector over a shop vac is a pretty good drop because it might be a similar decibel level, but it's a lower. It's not the high
Yeah.
pitch whine. So
Oh yeah, I would rather listen to that than I would a shop vac.
exactly, yeah.
I would actually rather have that thing outside in some kind of an insulated capsule or something, but then it would be pulling my air conditioning out. So
Yep, yep, very much so.
just having to deal with it. Uh-oh. Steve said that was a nice video on your exhaust system that you've been working so hard on for, what, 2 or 3 days now.
Well, working in earnest on actually installing it, I had a lot of work beforehand. I was moving things out of the way. I was, trying to collect all the right parts, and finally just like, okay, I've got enough. I'm going to cobble it together this way, and it's come out pretty well. It's a 6-inch fan from our friends at Hongguan, and I do have it choked down to 4 inches because that's kind of what the system was before. And to upgrade that to 6 takes different fittings and stuff on the outside. So I just said, let's roll with it this way, see how it works. And if it isn't enough, I'll upgrade the pipe outside as well as, if I need to add more machines. Because and actually Sam at Samcraft, he had commented he's got the same fan and he's running it on his Big Thunder laser and a couple other lasers like the P2 as well. So it definitely has some potential, and I know I'm choking it down a bit and not getting the full, but yeah. Anyway, dropped that video today. Appreciate everybody that's checked it out. I know some people had asked too. I had my clamps, my CNC clamps or the dust collection clamps. I don't have one right handy, but and people asked about it. I did drop that on my Etsy shop this just an hour ago. So if people are looking at those, wanting them, put it out there for you to play with. So anyway, yeah, it's a nice improvement for me. It should allow me to work with the machines a little bit easier without having to shuffle things around and then kind of worry about getting smoke piped from one or the other. I'll be able to block them off and move things as needed.
Yeah, well, I run a 6 choke down to a 4, but I don't think I have quite the extent of tubing that you have. So, which you do have the smooth bore
Yep.
tubing, so that's good.
Yeah, figured that would help make up for some of the loss in choking it down. So
Yes. Old guy design. Yes, I'm running Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and X. And Steve's probably doing most of the same ones on his side of things. So yes, there's a whole bunch of channels that comment. That's why we have the comments on the screen so you can see them there, as opposed to that in the comment section. That way, if we answer something or whatever, you'll know what we're talking about. But yeah, we're multi-platform streaming to like 7 or 8 different locations.
yeah, helps people be able to use the one they like because not everybody likes being on Facebook. Not everybody
Yeah.
can bring up YouTube wherever they want. Just kind of
Oh,
helps spread it out some.
hey, Brian made it.
Hey, in other news, we've got someone pinned on Alaska on our map.
What?
Yeah,
Finally. So that's all 50 then, right?
that should be all 50 states.
Woohoo!
So
Congratulations.
thanks everyone for dropping your pins in on our viewer map. We've got every state in the U.S. covered. We've got quite a few of the Canadian provinces covered as well, and as well as some stretching out into Puerto Rico, Guatemala. Got our friends over in Europe, Norway, Sweden areas, a lot in UK, and but we're starting to get in there into Germany and France as well. And then, of course, our friends in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and such. So all over the world, we have people drop their pins on our map, and we appreciate that. It's fun to see that, and we'll be able to continue using that to, as we maybe hit up events, we'll be able to say, hey, if you're in this area, we're going to try to do a meetup. So if you want to, there should be a link down in the description on both of our channels for a form. You just fill it out. You can put your screen name, business name, or no name at all. And then as long as it's a location that Google Maps can identify, it'll drop it in there. I do manually have to load them. I have to refresh that. So I occasionally forget when I get busy during the week, but so if you don't see your pin pop up right away, just give it a day. I try to hit that up once a day. So, but yeah, we've got all 50 states covered now here in the U.S. and looking to add more international. So
That's good. Working our way towards it. Chuck's asking, have I used Lightburn with my X-Tool P2? I have not with the X-Tool P2. To be honest with you, the cameras and the way that it works, I'm afraid that I will lose that functionality in Lightburn. And so I just run it in XCS. I do a lot of my design in Lightburn and then just send it as a SVG over into XCS or as a DXF or whatever. But that's one of the things about the P2 that if you're not comfortable using XCS, then it may not be the machine for you. But I really like it. I started a video trying to do some earring designs, and I've got a little bit of it done, but I got to finish it up, cutting some acrylic and stuff. Brandy, we got the Peach Jam coming up, and Brandy was like, you know what? I actually could use some like festive Peach Jam earrings, and so I've been experimenting with a few designs on some clear acrylic. They didn't turn out great because the font was so small, but I've got a couple other designs that I'm going to be doing, and I'll hopefully have a video on that pretty soon. But yeah, Lightbird is my favorite, but with that machine, like I said, you lose functionality and some of the conveniences of the machine. So I just kind of stick with XCS with it.
yeah, I'm the same way with that one. It it works well with XCS. And like even in Lightburn, I do a lot of my design in other programs and I'll bring it into Lightburn. Kind of like your video with the arrowhead, you're showing the few different softwares you use, and it's great to have those because even the image trace function, some softwares their algorithm does it better than others on different photos and different contrasting things. So it's good to kind of get used to a few different applications because sometimes especially when you have a software that's like the Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, master of none. It's great because it'll do everything a little bit, but sometimes you can have a different program that just does that thing really well, and then you can import it in. So that's how I use it. As a matter of fact, on the S1, I've used XCS quite a bit as well. Started playing around trying to work with it in Lightburn, but yeah, it's the software's coming a long way, and 2.0 is coming out. Some people are probably playing with the beta. I had an earlier access to beta and then grabbed their latest one. They've changed it a lot for the better or worse. Some things I had to figure out where they were at. So I don't have an opinion on it yet, other than I'm loving the fact that I can run, you can run multiple machines from one instance. You just bring up a new tab and connect to it. So that's great. And they've added a lot more node editing features into it so that you can actually clean up your images a little bit better. You don't have this. The one thing that I really like about Lightburn is your job control. So you set everything up. You can go in and say, okay, do in order of layers, but also go inside or outside, or start in the lower left and work to the upper right, kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's still missing from XCS, and that's getting more into optimizational workflow that certain people are going to get really picky about. The average person, it's not high on their priority list, probably because the average person goes, I don't care about that. I just want to have more control over my design stuff. But so
but
more
those
to
earrings,
come.
I noticed that the earrings, it was little tiny graphics, but it was doing them one at a time. And I was like, why not just do? It would save so much time to do them all at the same time. And I was like, is this just me, or am I missing something? But I guess you're having similar issues with it.
Well, you can do some work, and depending on it, like if they're vectors, you can kind of unite them to get them to be one block, but it's not perfect. I haven't played around with the beta to see how well they've improved that, but they've done some to
It's
their algorithm to try to improve it in how it tries to figure it out, but I haven't done enough to really see.
Yeah, I've played with the beta because when I had the mix up with the S1 when I for whatever reason decided to hit that update firmware button. Uh, that was one of the first things they asked me was like, "Hey, download the beta and see if maybe the beta can like update it even though the older version isn't." And so I downloaded the beta, went into developer mode, tried to force out the updates, and it's just not responding. But it was working fine. I had been running the machine in Lightburn. I had been running it in XCS. I had it sitting here behind me. And what I was going to do basically, I was trying to recreate the problem that people were having with the triangles instead of squares. But I couldn't get mine to do it. Mine just would not do it. So I'm like, well, maybe it's a different version of firmware. So let me go check and see if the latest firmware might be what's causing the problem. And I can't tell you whether it was or wasn't because as soon as it said updating, it made it maybe 20%. And I heard the machine make like a click click noise. And I haven't been able to connect to it since. So, the next 2 or 3 nights, I was troubleshooting by email. Then they're like, "Hey, look, can we access your computer?" So, I let them access the computer for the CNC, connected it to the machine, and they had no better luck than I did doing it themselves. So, at that point, I was told that they were going to ship me out a new board. That they suspect something has happened to the board. Could it be a heat casualty because there's a fan somewhere that got stopped up in this shop? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe when I pulled it out, it'll be something obvious. But I honestly think because mine was, if you remember, mine was one of the earlier S1s because I was surprised I got it when I did because I got it before it even come out. So it could be that that board maybe had a weakness or something that when that firmware went in, it bricked it. But it it definitely, if I had it to do over, I would have left that firmware alone. But
Well, so to run the beta version of the software and to be able to run both machines together, I had to update the firmware on both of them. And
I
I
bet you were
was
nervous.
well, I plugged the S1 into USB just because I was like, I don't want any hiccups. I don't want like an interruption in Wi-Fi or to cause it or whatnot. And that one went pretty smooth. It went through, updated, rebooted fairly quickly, and it was good to go. I was like, all right, well now we got to do the big one. Let's do the P2. And the progress bar went. It got up to 100. The machine kind of rebooted, and then sat, and then
Yeah, I did the
sat,
same thing.
and then sat, and I'm like, please do something. I mean, it was a few minutes, and it finally had processed. It rebooted, and things. It came back. I was like, okay, thank good.
Well,
It's just
I
anytime you
had the
update a
same
firmware.
thing because when they had me running the beta, same thing. I went ahead and updated the firmware on the P2, and I had the same thing. It was like progress and progress and progress, and then it stopped, but it just sit there, and I was like, oh no, 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 no. But like you said, it they should have had a little pop up say just a couple more minutes, just a couple more minutes or something. But eventually, it did reboot, and all is well with the P2. And then when that guy came in, I went ahead and updated it right out of the box. So not all firmware is bad, but and like I said, it could have been my computer could have dropped the USB connection mid stride of the update because I have been having some USB glitches. I cleaned my computer up today and took a bunch of bloatware that Microsoft had dumped on me through some updates and got it out of here. So there is that possibility as well. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I noticed with the 2.0 and the beta was it's went a lot more cloud based as far as like you have a place to store your files, the library, and some other things. And then, of course, they added that app button that threw you for a loop.
Yeah. Yeah, they moved things around, and I mean, yes, they added some cloud-based features, but it's still very much standalone, so you don't need to be connected to the internet to run it, which is good. If they had gone fully cloud, I think they would have lost a lot of people. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then the way you set up your power, it they kind of borrowed from We Create there, and they have the little image, and I forget what they call it. Their settings something. And I remember in the beta they asked people like, "What would you call this?" I'm like, "Make it something. Don't try to be fancy with it. It should be a materials library or something that is very obvious what it is." And so we'll see. So I'm going to have to play around with it a little bit more to see if I feel some of these changes are good, bad, or indifferent. I like some of the features they've added. It's just now that they've also moved things around, it disrupts your normal workflow because you're like, wait a minute, it was here, where'd it go?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you get up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom the day after your wife moved all the furniture around. Yeah,
I mean, I
kind of
don't know
like
what
kind
you're
of like
talking
that.
about.
You're just tripping over things and falling. Yeah, I know. No, it did not smoke. It it did, however, make a clicking noise. So, like I said, I don't know if that was necessarily the update did it or my computer did it. All I know is it happened during the firmware update, which is during any firmware update is a very very critical time not to lose connection.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da. Let's see what we got.
Let's see, we got Patrick here.
Oh,
He was he did a live stream just a little bit. It was a little over 2.5 hours. Ended about a half hour before ours, and he was doing this cool flag engraving on some aluminum with his 120 watt fiber. Which I said, hey, that looks great, but I am very envious.
well,
So,
I mean, if we ever get 120-watt fiber,
well,
hey, but you know what
so
he can't do, Steve?
it's a whole nother.
You, you know what he can't do?
Step out his door and shiver because it's really cold. Oh, the CNC, yeah.
He doesn't have one of those that I'm aware of. He may have one hiding in a back room somewhere. Uh-oh, what was that? Was that an Etsy purchase?
I don't know. I have my noise canceling headphones on.
I heard a cha-ching. Oh, but yeah. Patrick's got some. He's got some wild fibers over there. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's cool to watch that, and I hope to upgrade mine someday and be able to take a bunch of his notes and do some of that stuff. So, if you're interested in deep metal engraving and want to see how that's done, definitely check out Patrick's channel there, Light Source Engraving. He does some cool stuff with it.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned earlier that I was back in the screen printing business, but quite frankly, I don't do the printing. Brandy does. I do the laser part. But she hit me up Friday. She's like, hey, you think we might be able to go to Hobby Lobby Saturday where I can get some blanks and so forth? And I'm like, sure. I mean, I'm not going to turn down a chance to go to Hobby Lobby and see what kind of stuff they're selling for spring, because if nothing else, Hobby Lobby does a lot of market research. So when you walk in the door and you pass those cash registers, that stuff that you see right there as you're walking past the registers, that's the kind of stuff that you need to be making and putting out there, because they know that that's things that people will buy. So of course, with the Ray-Bans, it makes it easier, because used to I'd have to like get my phone out and take a picture. Now it's just like ka-chink, 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 ka-chink. And so I came home, and that's when I replicated that welcome sign for her, because she said, ooh, I need one of those.
Clack's being all James Bond in the craft store.
Hey, that's covert surveillance, man. Those folks at Hobby Lobby were kind of looking at me like, what's this guy up to? I'm just trying to figure out what of your stuff I'm going to copy.
Yep.
But yeah. Let's see what else. Somebody else has a question.
Well, here's one for you.
Oh, I think we clicked the same one. Go ahead.
Yep. There you go. Lakeside's asking, they get a lot of requests for tumblers. Don't normally do them. If I decided to start, would you recommend the S1 or a different laser? You've done tumblers on more of your lasers than I have, so what do you think?
The S1 does a good job. Now, that whole having to, you're going to have to do, I've got a video on it to where you trap that RA2 so it can't move. Because if not, it's hard to make sure that it's trued up. But as far as the speed of the machine and being able to do them, it does a good job. It'll do them really fast. Now, you are limited to, don't quote me, I think it's 120 millimeters with the RA2 Pro because of the jaws and because of the center of the axis and the base. There's only like 60 millimeters height. And
Well,
so
but you
anything
can
over,
you can rotate it
yeah,
backwards and put it
you
up
could
on
flip it
blocks.
over the back. Yeah, you could flip it over the back side and you'd have to. I've tried that with the larger tumblers and it wants to boom. So you're going to have to like weight it or come up with a jig system or something to hold it in place. But other than that, it does a good job. But you're going to need just like I said, you just go back and watch that video that I did, and you're going to have to come up with some way of holding that RA2 straight because that crumb tray and that thing moves. And if you go too fast or if you bump the machine between tumblers, then you're liable to get a little skew on your engrave. But it does a really nice job. Burns the coating off clean and makes them really shiny underneath without a whole lot of trouble. So, but all the diodes that I've got do a good job. But that 40 watts of power does come in handy. Ooh. Why do I always start yawning when we go live? Is it because I sit still so much?
I don't know.
I think you start running around. You start running around the shop.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned this earlier. If you were, especially if you're in the X-Tool ecosystem, the S1 over the P2, just from being able to align it and get it set up was a little bit easier. Because
Yeah,
you got you got that crosshair alignment and as opposed to just basically the cameras and such.
Oh yeah. Now, if you're asking which one would I prefer to do tumblers with, the P2 and the S1 all day long. The P2, they kind of overcomplicated it in my opinion with the P2, and I do not. I set it up one day and was going to try to do a tumbler, and I was like, I have spent more time trying to get this set up than it would have took me to do it on the S1. So I bounced over to the S1 and knocked them out quick. So yes, the P2 is not my pick for tumblers. Acrylics, it is awesome, but tumblers, no. It's got, like you said, it's got that weird line that you've got to line up with everything, and I'll take S1 over P2 on tumblers any day. So now, if you're just wanting it for tumblers, like I said, there are other machines as well, but the S1 does do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think this little guy's gonna be good for tumblers. Even
Yeah,
at 10 watt.
Yeah, well, and you also have the option of using the IR, so that'll help as well. But and probably be faster. But it's that's that's a really nice little laser for the right reasons. Like you need something portable.
Yeah.
You need something that can do both.
It's not gonna be
blue light
fast.
and IR. Well, it's limiting in size, and so dollar for working area and wattage, you're paying a lot for it, but you're paying for its portability and its flexibility in both the blue light and the IR lasers combined. So, but yeah, hooking that up with the RA2 is definitely an option. So. Not Board Woodworking's asking about a video of an X-Tool laser printing on the curvy side of a guitar. Not sure if it was the S1 or P2, but that's a pretty nice feature if it works well. As a matter of fact, you could do that with either one of those. They both have a Z adjustable, they've got the Z axis is on a stepper, and it's addressable through the software. They have different methods for probing the surface to get their depths, but yeah, definitely an option on either one of those. Within reason. There's going to be limitations to how deep and how much of a curve either one can do. But interesting. I've yet to see the ultimate practicality of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, why not? If the ability is there and they want to program the software, it adds another dimension of flexibility for you. So.
Yeah, they both, like you said, they both kind of go about it differently. With the S1, You basically have to go through there and probe periodically to show the contour, and it records that. And as the machine is going, it just kind of swaps. I don't know how exact that method of tracking would be unless you did it like every millimeter.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it would definitely help if you had a major dip. But I usually just split the focus and go. It's not
right,
something that's
and that's the thing. Unless it's an extreme thing, and the side of a guitar is a pretty good case use for that, because it is going to go in and out of focus, especially on the diodes, faster with that extreme. But yeah, it's I think you have to tell it this size of array. Here's the starting point. Here's the stopping point, and do it every however many, and then it kind of goes and touch probes each one of them. So it's a bit time consuming to set it up as well. So, but kind of a cool feature.
yes. Sup, Hobo? 3DHP. How are y'all guys doing today? But but yeah, like I said, they all have cool features.
Yeah,
But
but
I'm fortunate that I pretty much have a machine for almost any occasion. But if you only have one, you have to decide what's important to you.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah, it helps to know what you're going to be wanting to do when shopping for these, because our the disclaimer when people ask us our recommendation on anything, it usually comes with, well, it depends. And
Yeah.
it depends on what your case use is. So
Yep. Because truthfully, oh, wrong button. It don't work. Crap. I moved all my USB stuff around. But so far, like if you looked at my monthly income from jobs, the big machine is accounts for the majority of that because I do my stove covers weekly. I had a guy brought me a guitar the other day. I've had a couple of other hunting apparatuses that wanted some custom woodworking done to them. Things like that that will not fit without a whole lot of engineering into the other machines. So this is kind of my go-to. Like if a guy shall walk through the door with a guitar, it's like, okay, we're going straight over to the corner over here because I'm not fixing to get the sawhorses out. I'm not fixing to, start stacking paint cans. So, so this big enclosure is the one that, as far as my physical products, it's the one that turns out the most cash for me. Now, I
yeah,
had a lady come over the other day and wanted a keychain, and I went ahead and just knocked it out with that little guy because it was easy. It was quick. Like the keychains are in the drawer right below it. So, instead of having to drag the fiber out and set it up, I just put it in there, put it on a 1064 and let it rock. So each one of them has its own strengths and weaknesses. Like you said, depending on your situation. Decide what you're going to do with it, then select your machine. Because if not, you're going to find yourself doing whatever the machine's good at.
right. Yeah, having something that's a little more flexible is nice when you're first getting started out. It's one of those things where it never hurts to have a little more size and working area, but at the same time, you know, one of the features of these open frame lasers was you could move it to the workpiece as well. Versus my large
Yeah.
CO2 is where I had to make sure it could fit into it. But more of them are coming now where they might be more enclosed, but they might have a way to open up the bottom and still go through it. So
Yeah.
it's a balance because the open frame had a lot of issues as far as safety and such. Now we're getting more of these enclosed ones, but you're kind of losing some of that flexibility on oversized material in some cases. So it a lot of things to consider, but hopefully, if you're doing this as a business, you can definitely get started, start building it up, and then reinvest that money into upgrading your tools or expanding to additional tools.
Not bored. No, the V36 is no longer in EnclosureZilla. Adam Stack reached out to me, and when I got the X40 Max, I went ahead and upgraded the enclosure to the 40 watt. My 36 is hanging over there, like Steve said, in case I do have something come in that it's a 8-foot long table or something that I can't fit into an enclosure, I can just grab the V36 off the wall, or the Niji, or Sculpt Fun, or the Algo laser, and set it out here on the porch and do it if I need to. So, but now currently this is a X40 Max over here, and supposedly uh, I should have a, what is it, an A70? Is that what they're calling it? A70?
Hmm.
Is supposed to be on the way, and it will be going in my smaller enclosure. They wanted me to take that big 800 by 850 machine, but I do not
Yeah.
have the real estate to dedicate to that. So I opted. I think Steve did the same thing. I opted for the smaller frame one, which is still about the size of the longer that I have in there now. So it's going to be a
Yeah, I
decent
think
size
it's
machine.
400 by 500, so it's, a little bit. Is it deeper? I think front to back is deeper.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
so like the
I think
like
it's
the longer,
400.
which
400
means
by
if you've
500.
bought any one of the, you know, ready-made enclosures, it's probably not going to fit, and definitely going to be
Yeah.
a custom enclosure kind of thing. But
Yeah, well, luckily when I built this enclosure, I went with 36 by 36 because I kept seeing
yeah,
the machines getting bigger.
yeah,
And so I shouldn't have any issues. Worst case, we'll snatch the controller off the front of it and do something different with it. But hopefully that'll work.
hmm,
Da, 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 da. See another question somewhere. Oh, there you go. The welcome sign border that you did you design that file or download it, and what bit were you using? Well, I built everything except for the rope 3D inlay, and that's some of the border graphics that comes with Vcarve. I just kind of brought that in and put that there. Now, the one I did this morning, when I got it made, it turned out okay. Let me go grab it. It turned out okay, but once it came off of the machine, there was a little bit of a ledge past the rope that I did not like. Uh, and I went in and fixed it in the file, but I didn't want to trash this and start over because of that. So luckily I have a bandsaw. So I took the bandsaw and went around the edge of the rope and cut that extra little small piece of material off of there. And then I went into the file and corrected it. So the next one that I do, I'm actually going to do a video with, and hopefully it'll look a little bit better. But Brandy's came in and inspected this one, and she said that it will pass her inspection. So she wants it. So I've already sprayed it twice with some clear coat. And I thought she was going to paint it, but she said she didn't know if she wanted to because she kind of likes the color and the contrast. But this is actually plywood. I bought two different types of plywood at Home Depot the other day just to kind of compare. One's the birch, and this one's like the sandy or sandé.
oh yeah,
I'm not crazy about it, but economically speaking, it was significantly cheaper than the birch. So I bought a 2x4 sheet of both, and this is a piece of that, and it done okay. It's a little fuzzy compared to what I get from the birch, but for something like this that's going to be sanded and painted or stained or everything, it turned out pretty well. And like I said, but it is plywood, so it's a little more rigid, and the letters are a little more robust and won't break as if they would if it was a solid piece of wood. I was afraid if I did this out of a solid piece of pine, it would just fall apart because of the grain.
oh yeah,
So, but
yeah,
the file itself, I built just that rope band. I did not.
yeah. Especially when you get into V carving and such, softer woods are such a pain to work with. They tear out so much easier. People do the same thing when they're trying to learn hand cut dovetails. They figure, oh, I'll practice on some softwood, and you drive yourself nuts with the quick tear out and the breakage versus just getting
Yeah.
yourself, even a softer hardwood like poplar or something. So
Yeah. Well, that file, he's asking about the bits too. That file was a 2-bit cut. I did some of the line work and stuff. On that one, I did the first set of line work I did with a Vcarve bit. But then I got to thinking about it, and it was such a small contribution, it wasn't even worth a bit change. So I changed that over to the 1/8" bit that I did use to do the cutout with. But the 3D, this is what I used, and it is called a Skinny Jenny from Cody, over at Cadence Manufacturing. If you watch the short that I have, you can actually see it, but it's just a ball nose, 16th inch ball nose, and it does a real good job. And I didn't realize it, but I grabbed that thing to pull it out of the router today, and my fingers slid, and
Oops.
it actually sliced into my. Luckily, I got real thick skin, but it actually sliced
Yeah.
into my skin. I did not realize how sharp those little edges are, but I think you could shave with that. But it's a good bit, and I ran the speeds and feeds that Cody gives you, which he said I could probably go faster, but for the sake of my bit, uh, I I'm content with the speeds it's got, and I've got it set to run what he says, which is 150 inches per minute, and 100 on the plunge rate, which is really really fast. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cody, those things are sharp. Just letting you know. I pulled on it and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, paper cut.
Yeah.
But you know how sometimes the collet doesn't quite turn loose, and I grabbed it and I was thinking it was just going to slide out, and it didn't, and I kind of slid my fingers down it, and woo, I was like, that could have been ugly. Luckily, I have a first aid kit over by the door on the wall.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, that's the bit that I use for that, and I run the downtown. Was it downtown Jenny? Oh, the 1/8 of an inch Jenny bit, mini Jenny.
Yep.
I got to learn all the names. Anyway, I used the 1/8 inch down cut to cut it out and everything. I tried using the V bit to do that one little, but it's just literally all the V bit was doing was. The only thing I was using the V bit to do was this little line right here, just so that my W didn't blend into the frame,
Right.
and this little part of the E right here. And I was like, all that, a bit change for that? So I changed
Yeah.
it, went in and kind of moved the line out, and I've set this now to be cut with an 1/8 inch, the flat end mill before it does the cutout. And that's going to save me having to do a tool change. So, but yeah, good bits, but be careful when you're pulling on them, because they will cut you. And I've ran this thing. I did 2 or 3 test runs with it, but it's still short.
Well, you can get yourself just a small chunk of foam, set it under your spindle while you change your bits, and then just tap on the side of the collet, if it's stuck, to see if it'll drop out or not. Save yourself a little headache. Because there's nothing worse than you're loosening it up and it drops out right onto your hardwood, especially if it's a finer point. So
Yeah.
I try to be careful and either bring the spindle down or put something a little softer under it if I can't quite grab it. But yeah, I've had a couple incidents where I've accidentally brushed up against the edge. Especially like the compression bits. They have a nice sharp point on them at the bottom.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little careful.
Yeah, well, this one
Uh,
here, when I had the Makita was bad to drop bits. Like, you'd be, sitting there trying to, as soon as you broke the nut loose, the bit
Yeah, it would
fall.
just drop right out. Yep.
This one doesn't do that, but sometimes you have to loosen it further than what I'm used to get it to come out, and that's
Yeah.
what it was. I just didn't. I was so used to, like, break it loose and grab it with the other with the Makita. With this one, I don't have to do that, and I grabbed it too quick and pulled and shouldn't have. So, lesson learned.
Well, it's also good time to time to take that whole collet out and make sure there's, I've gotten in the habit just tapping on it and or even just hitting it with some compressed air, make sure that there's no sawdust in there, because the inverse can be just as bad, where you think you got it tightened in there and it just slowly works loose because
Yeah.
there's a little bit of debris in there. So just some of the fun stuff you learn when you jump into CNC machining.
Yeah, but Cody is in the chat. So guys, if you're interested in those bits, like I said, go check them out over at Cadence Manufacturing. Uh, I still have a bunch of other bits that I'm probably going to end up using, but I do a lot with reclaimed lumber sometimes for people, where they want, this is a piece of the barn that Dad built, and I want you to engrave something in it. So I'm going to save my cheaper bits for those projects in case, there's a nail. I usually try to use a metal detector, but sometimes you get in a hurry and forget and so forth. So I'm trying to save my genies from, a death from nail or tack.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've run them on bourbon barrel lids when people have wanted them engraved, but technically those should have no fasteners in them. But I think some of the resellers, I don't know what glue they use, but they use a real heavy glue, and man, that stuff just scares me every time a bit hits that because you hear it.
yeah, Thomas, this is kind of a misnomer, I guess. Yes, I love lasers, but at the root of it all, Thomas, I just like making stuff. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. I have welded. I've got oxygen acetylene cutting torches over there. I just enjoy making things, whether it's outside cutting trees and doing stuff on the sawmill, or that's my love is making things. And this is just to me, this is just one more tool that allows me to make that much more stuff. Just like with the 3D printer, the lasers, the sawmill. It's that's what I enjoy. It's not necessarily the lasers. It's being able to use that laser to make something cool. And so that's my love. So everybody's like, "Well, I thought the Clack Shack was just about lasers." No, the Clack Shack is about all the things that I find fun, and that does include honeybees, which honeybee season is right around the corner. My bees are doing really well. It's about time to start doing some splits, maybe pull a little honey off of them. So it's that's just you never know what you're going to see. That's right.
Yeah, that's I know a number of people have used that tagline, and I do it too, and I that's kind of where I've call myself more of a maker than a woodworker or a laser operator, things like that, because I mean, if you dig back in my channel, I mean, I used to do a lot of RC airplane stuff, and I still do. And I try not to step too far out of the lane, but there are times, like I did a video using the P2 to fix one of my airplanes and cut out new parts. And so, yeah, definitely. I hope people are receptive to that because that's what our shops are about, and we're going to venture out into areas from time to time. And so if people have come here for one thing, it'll vary, but we try to keep it somewhat along that. This is an average guy in a workshop enjoying various tools, and I take it to the extent of the modern maker because I do incorporate a lot of you know uh, I'm not so much the cut and hand cut dovetail kind of guy. As much as I love to play around with that, I'm horrible at it.
And it's
But
time consuming.
and it's time consuming. But yeah, I love using these tools to create stuff. So
Yeah. Somebody's asking, Chuck's wanting to know where I got the rope design. So I'm going to switch over to screen share for just a split second here.
okay.
All right. So in Vcarve, if you don't have Vcarve, then you probably had never seen this. But in Vcarve, uh, they actually have a little clip art section over here, and you can go to their website and download like packs, and you can purchase things like this design and make. This is some of their like purchasable stuff that every now and again they'll send you a thing saying, "Hey, redeem this free coupon or whatever." And so I just grabbed this stuff because it was free. But if you go into their clip art library, they have like borders, and one of the borders was this rope right here, and there's a couple different variations of it, and I threw it in. Now the rest of the design, the text, and connecting it with the border and all of that's me. But this rope right here, that is actually was used from here inside their software. So that's a cool little library. It's got all kinds of like little shapes and stuff that you can quickly grab, so you don't got to go hunting for them on the internet or whatever. But that's where that came from. I would love to take credit for that, but I'm not that skilled. But anyway,
Yeah, they have a lot of assets that you can either purchase or, like you say, they give away. So it's it's nice to and some of this software and Vcarve is an investment, especially when you get into a larger CNC like you have. You got to go to the pro version, and you're talking the
well,
$700 piece of
you,
software. So
you don't got to, but they do restrict you on how big you can engrave. So
yeah,
I have still not pushed the button on that yet. I was kind of
the
holding off.
the desktop one is 24 by 24, and if you want to have more unlimited size, then you got to go to the pro size. There are ways around it by tiling and doing things like that, but it adds a lot of headache. And so the nice thing
Yeah.
is they do give you credit. You know, when you go to upgrade your software, you don't have to like, well, I paid 300 for this one. Now I got to pay 700. No, they work with you and give you an upgrade path that it's more of just paying the difference. So
Yeah, well, I had to like for let's say for like setting up my when I trammed the machine out, I actually used Carbide Create and designed that in Carbide Create. So I do have the ability currently to do a 48 by 48. It's just not in a software that I'm all that comfortable with, but I did go in and set me up a to level the spoil board. I did go in and set me up a 4 foot by 4 foot leveling pass, and I've got that saved to the computer so I can just run it whenever I need to. But knock on wood, so far I have not hit my spoil boards. I've I don't know how I have it, but I have it. So hopefully it'll keep going that way.
uh,
Oh,
well,
did you have one?
yeah, I was just going to mention, following up on that, Tim Hensley was saying he saw a YouTube video where someone was making the rope design. I believe actually Hobo with Wood did that on a live stream at one point. So if you go back a couple weeks, you can see him kind of working how he made that design. And it's used a lot in military ones. So like the Marine Corps logo has a rope design in it and such. So I know he does have one, and I'm sure there are others out there, but yeah, you can design it for laser, grabbing an image and trying to trace that same effect. But with the CNC, you actually have more of a 3D design with that one.
Yeah, which would not saying I couldn't make it in Fusion, but it was a lot easier just drag and drop it. Mark's asking how I'm attaching work pieces. So far, Mark, everything that I've done, I built myself a little corner brace, and I've got it basically locks into the T-tracks that's built into the machine, and that corner brace is basically where I always set my 0, 0. So when I put another work piece up there, like just a square piece of material, all I have to do is shove it into that corner and set the Z-axis with whatever bit I'm using, and I'm good to go. But I have, with other machines, used the CA glue. I've used the double-sided tape. I don't really like using the double-sided tape if I'm doing a cut, because it does gum up the bits and it's a pain to get that stuff off your bits. But if you're just doing engraving, it works pretty well. The CA glue with painter's tape is probably the better choice, in my opinion, if you're going to be doing it where you're cutting all the way through. It's a little easier on the bits and doesn't leave a mess. But so far, I've been using the clamps that came with the Shapeoko, the little green clamps, and they work pretty well. They're not all that quick to put on and off because you have to use an Allen wrench, but they're below my dust shoe. And with the dust shoe that I have, you really don't want stuff sticking up above the workpiece, because that dust shoe can hit them, and if it does, then it can mess up your run. So I've been just using those and my little piece. I got an extra one I can show you. I'll tell you. This is the older, thicker one, but when I went to half-inch material, I made a new one. But it's basically just an angle. It's got a hole in the center. That's where my 0 is. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a recess. That's where my bit 0 sits in there so that it doesn't touch this. But when I started doing the half-inch material, I cut me one out of half-inch that has a recess that's like 4 millimeters deep. And it's just smaller than this, but I'm using the T-track to connect it to the base. And that just adds as a reference points, because I can just go over there right now, fire the machine up, tell it to go to X0, Y0, and it'll stop right here. It'll go to right here on that little bracket that's made to the machine bed. But if I want to do something big, I just unscrew it from the T-track and put it to the side. Greg said his MK2's arriving tomorrow. That's going to be fun.
Well, Greg, first thing you got to do is get it out of the box because it's mostly in one piece.
Yep, mine has been rejuvenated. I lost a board on that one. I've been snake bit lately. But Leo sent me out a new controller, and I took it apart, put a new controller in it, and it's working like a charm. I used it earlier on the silks of the screen printing and everything. Did 2 or 3 test burns with it, a couple of cutting boards, and hadn't missed a lick. So I did find that I had a lot older version board in mine. The one that they sent me as a replacement was a version 3, and mine was a version 2. So don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe I had a lightning strike or something nearby, but it's been a rough couple of weeks.
Could be. I've been hearing a lot of weather reports about a lot of storm activity in your area. So
Yeah, but I'm getting them going slowly. Yeah, I'm not sure what that sande or whatever plywood is made out of. I'm not a fan of it for anything that needs to be rigid, and it doesn't cut really smooth. But
well,
it's cheap.
it has a real soft kind of porous layer, at least on one side, if I remember right. And I think that most of the inside and inner layers are pretty much just soft MDF or LDF almost. So yeah, it is what it is, but it's inexpensive and it's good practice material. Or if it's something that you're going to paint over, the looks probably aren't that bad, but there's some drawbacks to it for sure. Now, did the piece you have? I'm trying to remember because I think I've gotten some of that where it has like the putty filling in knots on one side.
No, it externally
have any of that?
it looked nice. I mean, it's
On both?
smooth. It's a real light color and it's consistent. Doesn't have any like knots or
Cool.
anything like that. So I was like, I'll give it a try. It was significantly cheaper than the birch. So I was like, if nothing else, it'll be a good prototyping material. And that's what with this, like I said, if this had to go in the garbage, at least it wouldn't, $15 worth of Baltic birch.
Right.
so,
Yep.
so it works out. But luckily, she said it met the design, so we'd be good to go. True Tech, I appreciate that. I worked really hard on that table. Did that right before I guess it was about 3 or 4 weeks before the machine got ordered.
Yeah, you had the
Because
Saint
I had-
Smart sitting on there for a while.
Yeah, I had decided I was either getting the Shapeoko or a Onefinity, and so I went with like a 64 by 64 table. That way I could fit either machine and have a little extra for cable management and that type of thing. So because I had narrowed it down to those 2 machines, so I went ahead and built the table before I even decided on which machine I was getting.
Very cool. Yeah, I have to get mine cleaned off. There's actually some extra parts sitting on mine right now. But what it is, I had purchased from I can't remember who it was. I have the documentation somewhere, but it's the original Onefinity and the current one. Up until I think this past holiday season, they finally released a cable chain kit for the original one. Now the Elite does come with one, but so mine hasn't had that. And when I upgraded to the wider Journeyman and such, I bought this kit, and then you buy some of that 3/4 inch aluminum angle rails and put them all together. So I was kind of getting all that out together. I picked up those aluminum rails. I was trying to see, okay, what's going to be the process in my mode of operation here for it. Of course, then just found out this week, good friend of mine just happened to finagle his way into an Elite machine from Onefinity. So I'm sure I'm going to go over and check that out because he lives just 15 minutes away. It's going to make me think again about that upgrade, and then putting these rails and these parts on will be a moot point because it's going to come with that. But we'll see. I'll probably do this upgrade first and wait on that.
Hey, well, when you get it cleaned off and everything before you get it dirty again, go ahead and take some pictures so that when you get ready to put that one on Marketplace and you've ordered your new one, you'll already have the pictures.
Well, no, it's an upgrade for this one. I just take,
Oh, you're one
it uses
the upgrade.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought you were going to order a whole new Elite series.
No, I mean, if I wanted the full 4x4, I'd have to do that. When I upgrade mine, it'll be 4 feet wide. Well, it'll be the same dimensions as mine, but it'll have the Masso controller and the servo motors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I don't think
they
you
don't.
have 4 foot by 4 foot.
No, not at this point. No, I'll let you keep that crown.
Up North Knowledge is asking what would be a good economical CNC for a maker to start with. And there's a lot of debate over this, and there's different perspectives, and I respect other people's opinions. But in my thing would be first figure out exactly how much you're willing to contribute to the cause financially, because that's going to kind of determine where you're going to land. Now, the 4040 SaintSmart that I had, I made some pretty cool stuff on it. I learned a lot of the basics. I got the fundamentals. I figured out that, hey, this is something I like. And then I advanced to the point to where I ordered that and spent way more money than I would have. There is no way I would have ordered that, like not knowing. Out of it, just if I had never had any other CNC, I would never have ordered that because I've been like, no, that's too much money. But after seeing the projects that I could make and the potential for being able to make money back with the machine and everything, that's when I decided to go ahead and buy it. So I personally don't have a problem with starting out with smaller machines. Just figure out what fits in your budget, but just understand that lower budget is have lower expectations of what you're going to be able to do with it. That was the lesson that I learned. What do you think, Steve? I know we've had this conversation in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's tough to tell someone you really need to jump out there and spend $3,000-4,000 on something like this or something like yours without them ever having their hands on one. So if you absolutely don't have anywhere you can go to try one out, like a makerspace or a semi-local contact, that's a tough thing because you want to maybe start out with more of a benchtop type, but there's the 4040 Pro like you got for they're around $500-600 give or take, which are like you mentioned they're okay, but they're limiting. You're really talking about 1/8 inch bits. You're not talking about high speeds. You're not talking about big projects. And then in the same vein, the 6050 from SaintSmart is probably their biggest benchtop one, and then you can even get an extension kit for it. But that in itself is $1,500-1,600, and so the jump from 600 to 1,600, you're talking $1,000 difference there. Well, then the difference between that $1,600 one and maybe a lower end Shapeoko or even the basic Onefinity at 2,500, where does it stop? So I guess I would agree with you that the 4040 is, if you just really don't know if it's for you, but you want to get your feet wet, that one's I feel is better than your $200 random benchtop one that you can find on Amazon and such. But it's not into that $1,000 plus. I feel you get enough of a feel for it there. You'll get an idea of how it works. You'll get an idea of some of the things you can do, maybe on a smaller scale, maybe slower, without quite the investment. And it'll probably be easier to find someone that you can resell it to. Yeah, you're probably going to lose some money on it, even if you bought it for 600 and you sell it for 400. Well, that $200 was your tuition in learning if CNC is going to be right for you. And you either say yes and you now know what to look for and know what you want, or you say no and you're only out $200. Either way. So I would tend towards that if someone just doesn't have any access to a different one. But do look around. Maybe there's a makerspace in your area. Maybe there's a CNC group in your regional area. It might be something you got to drive an hour to, but to get some hands on a machine, see it in action, maybe run a job, is worth, to me, it'd be worth an hour drive or hopefully less to find out if you want it without making that full investment.
Yeah, like I said, the 6050, that was the what I kind of feel like I crossed over going from the 4040 to 3030 to the 6050. The 6050, I felt like, okay, I can actually make things now. But then it was like every time I turned around, it was like I'm trying to do something 28 inches and I can't. So then it was like, I need more work area. I need more work area. So that was the big motivator for me, was just to get more work area. Now, since I've got the spindle and all that, it's daylight and dark now. But I feel like if I'd have put the Makita on this machine, other than I'm sure this one has a little more rigidity than the 6050 had. It really wasn't that big of a difference as far as speed until you go to the spindle. But then it's like, okay, now I can drive this thing. Whereas, if you're running it with a router, the 6050 is going to probably have as much speed, maybe not quite the accuracy. It was pretty decent though. I mean, I can't complain about that machine. But this is just the bomb because I can go as big as I want to.
Yeah. I guess mine, I found myself pulling back on the 6050 from what I'm used to with the 150, but like you said, it's still a very capable machine. You can run quarter-inch bits with your trim router just fine, and do more work. But like I say, it's a heavy, expensive machine at
Yeah.
$1,600 or so because it's not going to be portable like the 4040. At least that one you could reasonably get it out of your way and move it if you needed to. That one
Yeah.
you're going to be building a dedicated space for it, and it takes up a fair amount of space. So that one definitely is more of like you're a little more serious, but not ready to jump into the Shapeoko kind of thing, or the 150 kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. The 6050 is a team lift.
yeah.
Safely. Safely.
Yep.
But yeah. Cody said he started small. Like I said, we talked about that the other day in the live when Cody was here. He started out with like a Bob's wooden CNC or whatever, moved his way
Yep.
up. And like I said, I'm glad I did it that way because I learned the software as I went. Because me, the software, and the machine, all three had limitations because I didn't know what I was doing. And if you're going to break bits, it's a lot easier to buy those little 1/8" Chinese bits than it is to start buying 1/4" bits. So,
Yep. But there's always the option to look, on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist
yeah,
and such to try to find a used one. But there again, I mean, if you don't know what you're looking for, you might not be able to recognize when something doesn't look right. And the used market can be a gamble that you might be inheriting someone else's problems. So,
yeah,
it try to do some good research if you're going to go and look at a used machine. Try to find out maybe what are some of the things to look for, maybe the things to ask the person, and to see, because it's nothing worse than saving a buck to spend more because you found out that they had really messed something up. So
oh yeah, yeah. I've seen some pretty decent deals if as long as the equipment's good. Here lately on Marketplace, folks getting out of it. Lasers, CNCs, the same. I mean, but like you said, buyer beware. You know, make sure make sure you don't get got. You buy a machine and then come find out that everything on it's burnt up and is no longer supported. So
well, and also, most of these are going to have some assembly required, and that's a really good way to, as you build it, you kind of learn how the parts go together. So you will have maintenance, and you may have problems at some point. It's always good that you assembled it so you kind of know how to take it apart and maybe be able to troubleshoot a little bit easier.
yeah. See you, Sam. What's up, Michael? Yeah, Chris said if you make a used purchase, you need to know how to rebuild it from scratch.
Yeah.
You very well may. You very well may. Yeah, Jer O'Grady. I looked at the long mill, but at the time that I looked at them, they were still running the urethane wheels or whatever, and I just wasn't really a fan of that. I wanted ball screws and linear rails, and so that was one of those things. I know they're coming out with one that they've stepped it up with, but they're at the time that I was shopping, they did not have a market release date, and I'm very impatient when I decide I'm ready to go on something. So I went ahead and got myself the Shapeoko, and part of that is because Steve, as you can see, has the Onefinity. So if you guys have a question about a Onefinity, Steve may be able to help you. And hopefully, the more I learn, if you have a question about the Shapeoko, hopefully I can help you with that. And so we cover a little bit more of the machines that are out there. And guys, I'm sorry, but that's just a bad looking machine. It's just awesome. It just has that Harley Davidson Power Glide, black and chrome look to it. It doesn't look like a science experiment. It doesn't look like R2D2 got hit by a bus. All my wires, I took extra precautions. Like I have drilled holes through the table. My harnesses goes down through the table. Underneath the table is cable management to the bottom, the underside of the table, over to the controller, which is mounted to the back. I mean, it is clean. There's no dangling wires. There's no nothing. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a sleek, clean looking machine. And that thing, it's just sharp. I can't help it. That black and I know it's not chrome, but it looks like black and chrome, and it's cool. But
Well, when you spend that much money on it, you should feel good about how it looks when you get it assembled too. So,
oh yeah, yeah, I like it. Like I said, and when Steve comes to visit, I've got an air mattress that will fit up there, and then I've got some sawhorses that'll sit down here, and it'll be almost like he's got one of those reclining beds. I've got a 4x8 sheet of plywood, Steve. I'm just gonna lay it up there, stick a couple of screws in it, and man, you're ready. You're good. It's 8-foot bed.
well, then it's just going to look like a torture rack.
Oh me. But yeah. Well, don't forget, guys, if you hadn't already, go check out the links in the description. Did I put them in the description? I sure hope I did.
I hope you did.
Go check out the links to the laser engraving community page as well as the map. And I'm trying to double check and make sure I did before I say I did. Yes, I did. All the links are down there. And there's also a link to Cody's place over there at Cadence Manufacturing. See, I was on top of it. I just didn't know that I was on top of it.
Look at you.
Yeah, I
Getting
did
it all
that.
in there.
Yeah. So got lucky on that one. Jim, I have been resisting the urge. I ain't gonna lie to you. I have been resisting the urge because I've got probably half a gallon of orange paint left.
Just happen to have orange paint, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Odd.
But I've been fighting the urge. I was gonna give it a little while before I did anything to it, just to make sure that's what I want to do. But yeah, don't be surprised if it ends up that way.
Well, I don't think I'd be surprised. So keeping the router power cable out of the way when you can't put it in drag chain, that's where, I've seen people get kind of creative with arms that, swivel and might have a bit of a spring to kind of pull it back. Just enough spring to kind of keep it pulled back, but not so much that it adds a lot of tension. But yeah, that's a tricky one when you got to actually remove it, unless you can put some sort of kind of inline plug through the cable chain and have a disconnect at the spindle source as well. That might be something else to look into. But yeah, I've done that before on some of my others. It works easier when you got an enclosure and you can kind of put some mounts up there and kind of keep it out of the way. But that's a tough one. I actually have on mine, I have it following the boom for the dust collection. So it kind of swivels and follows along with that hose as well, instead of running through the cable chain. But when I do get the cable chain and the rails and everything on there, I'll probably be putting in all the cables and tubing for my spindle that I have, and actually finally getting that set up as well. So then I won't need to worry about that.
Well, a little redneck engineering. If you go to Tractor Supply, they have longer springs that are kind of like screen door springs, but not quite as stiff. You could actually get a couple of those and maybe put an eyelet up above, and just take some zip ties and zip tie the cable to those. But you want to make sure that it's not enough tension that's going to damage the cord, but that would kind of allow it to come and go with very little pressure. Now I would advise anchoring the cable somewhere on the machine with a zip tie or something, just to prevent it pulling from the router itself. But
Strain
yeah,
relief.
yes, but that's something that I had considered with my dust collection setup before I built my little articulating arm up there. Was using those springs, and they do have them at Tractor Supply. They're like 2 foot long, but it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to stretch them. But I think it would be adequate to lift that cable up and keep it out of the work area while you're working. Like I said, a handful of zip ties, and you could adhere it and remove it at will. Or just make you some little. You could CNC you some little J hooks, and just have the J hooks dangling, and just lay the cord in those J hooks.
Tammy's asking if there's any protective coating that we use after laser engraving coasters. Depends on the coaster material. So if we're talking about the slate tile, I've actually found by coating them first with just some clear polyacrylic, clear polyurethane. It could be polyacrylic, the water-based one, or the oil-based one, but it actually adds a better definition between the engraved portion and the tile. It'll make the tile a little darker. It makes the engraving a little whiter. Now, there's the argument that it's losing its absorption properties, but tile is minimally absorption, has a minimal absorption rating anyway. So if it's just condensation coming off the cup and you're still using them, they're not decorative, it'll still do its job. If you're spilling water all over it, I'm pretty sure you were going to have a problem anyway. So for my, I will actually spray them first and then engrave them. I usually don't go back over them after that. Now, if they're wood or others, yes, I usually will hit them with some sort of finish, usually a spray-on finish, because any sort of any rub-in oil and wax finish gets into the engraving, and it's bad. So usually just like a spray lacquer, or spray shellac, spray polyurethane, one of those. Generally, because I'm looking at it as more decorative than functional. So, what about you?
Yeah, I mean sometimes I'll spray them like you said, either polyurethane, polyacrylic. Sometimes maybe it's some Rust-Oleum, just clear, just whatever. It depends. It depends on the application. Sometimes I do nothing. Most of the time I'm drinking out of one of these anyway, so it's not like I got a lot of condensation. It's just that occasional,
Yeah.
leakage. So I'm not really worried about them having to do a whole lot of absorbent of water.
Yeah, for me, it's more about the thermal barrier. Putting a cup of coffee on a wooden
Yeah.
surface. I've got a few different engraved tiles. So
Yeah, if you do that with some of the older shellacked, like pine especially, you'll get that
Oh, yeah.
white mark.
yep. But that's how you build repeat customers, right? Eventually they
right.
wear them out and they come back for more.
Greg, no, the controller. If you see where the machine's set, the main controller for the machine is mounted directly below the back right corner. I've got a little board that's on the side. If you see where the cross bracelet is on my table, I've got a piece of board that is bolted to the cross bracing on that back corner on the outside, and that's where the main controller is mounted, and it's mounted with the power switch facing toward the front. So in order to power the table up, I actually have to walk around to that corner of the table and reach under there and flip the switch. The controller for the spindle, because I thought I was going to have to interface with the spindle controller at first. Hindsight, I do not. It's right here behind my fire extinguisher, behind that corner bracing on the front corner. I do think I'm probably going to end up moving it back over there since I don't actually have to mess with the controller. I thought I was going to have to adjust it, but there wasn't a book in the VFD. So if you do get a Shapeoko, you do not, the up and down or the knob on the front of the spindle controller, yeah, you don't need that. Everything's done through software. But The only wire that I thought I was going to have to add wire to is that kill switch that's to the right of my keyboard right there. I literally had just enough wire to go from that back corner to where it's mounted at. If I'd have put it on the right side of the table, I'd have had plenty of cable, but I wanted it right there by where my keyboard is, so that if something went wrong when I sent the job out, I would already be standing there and I could just smash that kill button. But it wouldn't have hurt my feelings for them to made that power pendulum, what do they call it? Whatever.
Pendant.
Power pendant. Yeah, it wouldn't have hurt my feelings any if they'd have made the cabling on it about a foot or two longer, so that you could have put it in the front left corner over here. But I thought I was going to have to make that one longer, but I did some creative wire strapping and a couple of tunnels through a couple of 2x4s underneath the table, and was able to get it in there without having to add anything to it. But all of my cabling is secured with wire straps and screws, and it's all good.
Up North Knowledge is asking about have you ever used EVA foam and a laser to cut it out for tool layouts? Having a problem in Lightburn tracing photos of my tool drawer layout. So yeah, I've cut probably hundreds, if not thousands, of these little things out of EVA foam. These are just little wire keeps for model airplanes. You can glue them to the side of the airplane on the inside to route your wires and such. And I've done that with both CO2 and laser and diode lasers. So it does work well. As far as having a problem in Lightburn tracing photos of the tool drawer layout, what I would do, I'm not sure how you're doing it, but if you can, just get like a white piece of paper, lay it down in your drawer as you can, then lay out your tools you want, and then take like a black Sharpie marker and make your outlines. Draw those out in the exact spots you want, and then if you can scan it, great. Otherwise, take a photo of that, and that contrast should help Lightburn see it. If you can use a fine point marker, it's better because the wider the marker, it's going to see it as a thick line and probably do a double line rather than a single. That's where having a tool that does center line image tracing is great. So maybe fire up Inkscape if you're struggling with that. But generally with those trying to just get a high contrast of white on black, nice crisp line should help you get that trace in. And a lot of times the tracing I end up just redrawing anyway. So like if it's a hammer, I'll draw a box and then I'll make some curves and join them all up, make sure your nodes are welded together. And so it's not so much using the trace tool, but I'm just in the software making my manual lines and curves around the objects. Sometimes that's just a lot easier than trying to clean up a bad image tracing from the tool. So yeah, if double line was your problem, you can, load up Inkscape. I'm pretty sure that has a center line trace tool, and maybe play with that. Otherwise, take your photo and just start drawing your shapes using the other tools and not rely on the trace one so much.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I use the image as more of a reference to build my own, because like you said, when you start tracing, sometimes you'll get those weird, everything will be perfect. You'll have that one weird line that just will not cooperate, and you end up having to edit it anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it is quicker and cleaner just to build over that for reference.
Yeah, sometimes you get the double line and you can just delete one of them, but more often than not, it breaks them up. It'll have weird little divots where they're joined, and you spend more time cleaning it up than just redrawing it. So,
yeah. Yes, been there, done that.
that's where when people ask me, can I cut them some model airplane parts, I'm like, you don't want to pay me to, because it's going to take me a long time to, these old hand-drawn plans that have all sorts of little artifacts on them do not trace well. So I'm spending a lot of time in CAD cleaning them up for saving them 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the file design a lot of times, like I said, is that's the heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
The robots do the real work once you get the file laid out, but sometimes the file can be a pain. I've been working on doing the badge, our PD badge, and I've been having to work that thing through Fusion and then just bringing it into Vcarve and having to get rid of things. And because there's a lot of things that when you take a picture like that, and you trace it, the shapes don't work for CNC because if the line is an eighth of an inch apart and all of a sudden it goes to less than an eighth, now you got this little leave in the design. So I've spent a lot of time going in there editing nodes, trying to clean that thing up. I've got it doing pretty good though.
So Gerard is asking about the shaper trace tool. I have one and I've played around with it a little bit, but I'll be honest, it's not that much different from just taking a good photo and of a drawing and importing it into the software and tracing it either. So, I mean, I could see in certain cases where it might be nice, but for me, I was kind of like, oh, well, it's not really saving me any steps when I'm going to work with it in Lightburn or Vectric anyway, because both of them have the tools.
Yeah, see, this one right here, it turned out okay, but where the seal is right here, I got a little bit of double lettering that I didn't quite realize it until it actually engraved it. So again, this was a prototype on some leftover pine, but I've went back and redone the engrave here, and I got a lot better on my second engrave. I just did a little small one, a lot better results and clear. So this is something I'm working on. I'm going to do a epoxy project, but I'm trying to get the bugs worked out of the file before I do, because I need nice clean edges and I want everything to be visually appealing before I start trying to hog out a piece of black walnut and or whatever I decide to use, maybe some magnolia, and waste a really expensive piece of wood.
The nice thing for you on that one is that you'll spend the time to tweak the file, and then you can scale it to different projects. You're more likely going to use that same file a number of times rather than, hey, I got this one thing, and you're going to spend 45 minutes to carve it once and then never use that again. So it's something to consider when taking on jobs like that.
Yeah, like I said, this is something I'm doing for
my.
This is something I'm doing for myself and for the PD. I just I want to do a really nice, badge, but I want it to be engraved, and I picked up some black pigment for my epoxy, so that once I get the bugs worked out, I'll be able to engrave it, mix up some epoxy, pour it with epoxy, and then put it back on the CNC and run a leveling pass across the top of it to get the results that I want. But yeah, it's been a test and wait kind of process to get that ready to go. But hopefully that'll be a video if I don't have another camera failure like I had today. That is that feeling you get when you're like, oh, that video went pretty well, and you plug the SD card into your computer and there's nothing there.
Or you've got all your stuff set up, and you're like, oh, the carve went great, or the laser went great. You go to turn off the camera, and you realize you just started it.
Yeah. Well, mine was right the opposite. It was recording. I looked up, had a red light. It looked as though it was recording.
Yeah.
Got through, and I was like, man, that's going to, I got plenty of B-roll. I got some pretty nice shots of the engraving. Plugged the SD card in, and there's video from like a week ago, but none from today. It's like, where did my files go?
Ouch.
So, yeah. So at that point, it's just discouraging, and you're just like, okay, let's grab some video, throw this together, and put it behind us. Jim, no, I do not have Aspire. Currently, I just have Vcarve Desktop. I'm more than likely going to be upgrading to the Pro, but I'm kind of pacing myself, trying to get some money back in the bank. Uncle Sam took all my money last week.
Yeah, we're both feeling that pain for this past month, but onward. Yeah, I hope to do similar to you. I actually showed it. Where did it go? Similar for work. So I manage the IT department at the college I work for, and so wanted to do an epoxy project as well, using our logo and our department name, and maybe make a couple of them, because we actually have there's about three or four different office locations that my staff are sprinkled around from. So I'm going to try to, it'll give me a good opportunity to try a few different methods, from paint fill to epoxy fill to different, I've got different color additives and such. So we'll see how that goes. Now that I said it, I suppose I'm on the hook to make it happen, but
Yeah,
we got
well,
to do some testing first.
both of these are going to end up being a video, but I'm trying to work all the bugs out, make sure that I've got the process now before I go to doing it with the final piece of wood, because I've got a nice piece of magnolia over there, but I don't want to put it in the CNC until I got all the bugs worked out of the file, and so that's why I'm just using leftover pieces of stove cover material to do my testing. And then just what I did is I just basically I dug it in like twice as deep as I needed it, sprayed it with some clear coat, then sprayed it with black, and then I shoved it through the planer to see what it would look like underneath. And that's how I do my test pieces. But I can't go but like 12 to 13 inches wide, or else I've got to flatten it with the CNC. And my big one I will have to do with the CNC, because I'm going to try to make that thing like 24 inches.
You just need an open-ended drum sander.
Yeah, I don't have one of those either, and I don't have room for it. So,
They're on wheels right there.
yeah, but they still have to have somewhere to live.
It's on
Have
wheels.
you
You just
seen
move
this
it around.
place? Dude, I probably don't have 15 feet of floor space left. I can't. I cannot take in any more tools.
You're not that
without
big of a guy.
something leaving.
You can weasel your way through them. Just kind of bob and weave.
Yeah. Okay. You should see me trying to bring 2x4s in here. It's just like pow, 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 pow,
Yeah.
knocking everything around.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah. Do. All right, guys.
Whoops. What did I click on? You need to make that badge in 3D. Yeah, that'd be another fun thing to do on that.
Well, I have it in 3D. That's where I got the.
Yeah.
That's where I got the file for that.
See, Brian's got your back.
Well, I've already got it in 3D, so I'm reverting backwards, because I made a 3D printable one, and now I'm having to take it back to CNC, and I really had thought about doing a STL and doing a 3D carve of it, and I may, but that's going to be very, very time consuming. The size that I've got it set to be doing, I may have to download or downscale my project.
See, and some people like Jack, their entire shop is only 15 feet, so no excuses.
Yeah, I couldn't make it. Let's see. Here's the actual 3D file that I've created, and it looks pretty sweet. But the depth on that is insane. It would take forever to do that, because the depth is just so deep. And I don't know, without a 16th inch bit, unless I make this thing really big, I don't know how I go about pocketing all those small things out. What in the world? Stand by. Something's going on outside. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Stand by.
Well, I heard Cody was going to work on a 16th inch bit for us anyway, so we'll be able to get that going. So hopefully a tree didn't just fall on his shack out there.
All right, guys, safety's on. We're good.
We're
Cats.
staring at your desktop.
Well, sorry about that.
Inception. Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. I did not know what exactly that loud noise outside was. Had to go safeties off. Had to go
was it a
safeties off
jackalope?
for a second. No, believe it or not, my wife was cleaning up her screen printing area, and she had the big box that the X-Tool screen printer came in.
Mm-hmm.
She still had it in the house, and she was like, hey, take this out to the shop and burn it. Well, it was raining earlier, so I just set it on the porch on my sawhorses out there. Apparently, one of the cats got in the box and was playing. And so this big 2 foot by 2 foot by 3 foot box fell and knocked all kinds of stuff down up against the garage door. And as I went outside, the cat was collecting itself, running away. So, but you never know. I thought, it could have been a squirrel, a deer, a raccoon, cats fighting. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And see, Cody's got your back. The 16th inch bits, it's on the list.
It's on the list. Yeah. Well, the if I blow it up big enough, I think the eighth will do it. But
You
I'm
got
gonna have
that
to.
4x4 work area. Just start gluing some panels together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. Now I'm at $200 worth of lumber.
Hey,
But
it's for the kids.
no, it's for my office.
Like I said, it's for the kids.
But but yeah.
But yeah, no, no pressure, Cody. Whenever you get around to it, but you get a 16th inch bit done, I'll definitely be picking one up because they on my smaller machine, I used to use a lot of 2 millimeter bits and such, and I would enjoy having one in my arsenal for the occasion I need it because especially on the model airplane parts, you get some tight areas that even an eighth inch bit just you can do it, but you're leaving a lot bigger spaces, or you're doing weird dog bones and such, and that 16th inch just helps out a little bit. So I'll enjoy it if he gets it worked out.
That'd be cool.
You know,
Oh, whatever. Whatever, Brian. Whatever. No, the box, I couldn't burn it. It was raining. It would have just got wet, and then it would have took me a week to let it dry before I could burn it. So I put it under the porch. Mm-mm-mm. I'm going to actually use it as kindling to get my fire pit going. It could have been a
even though it's
Bigfoot, but it wasn't.
even though it's all wet.
No, it's not wet. It's under my porch, or it
I
was.
know.
It's still mostly under the porch. It just fell towards the outside. But it's that big white box.
So here's a question: if you're starting today, would you buy your laser engravers first or plasma or CNC? Asking for a friend.
I can't have a plasma.
Ki- What is this gonna? Is that on Brandy's no list or?
No, there's too much sawdust in here.
Oh, okay,
If
yeah,
I
yeah.
fired up a plasma in here at this point, there would be an explosion, and this place would go up like a raging inferno.
Yeah, I hear you on that. That's I'd love to have like a small. I'd have to wall off a section back here or something to do some metalworking. Have a plasma table and a welder. But yeah, as far as a CNC router versus a laser, I actually started first with a CNC router. Friend happened to have one, started using it. He decided to upgrade, sold it to me, and then I eventually broke into lasers with my CO2, which you can kind of see just a little bit of it there.
Just turned into a shelf.
It doesn't have as much on it. There's like five things on it. It's, but there's a lot of overlap between them as far as what you can do. But there are definitely things that a CNC router is better at or can do that the laser can't, and vice versa. I would say a laser, especially these desktop diode lasers, is easier to use. There's definitely things that can go wrong with either of them, but with the CNC router, you got to have your hold downs correct. You got to have your speeds right. You got to have your feeds right. You got to know what kind of bits you're using for what purposes and such. It's not so much of put piece in laser, fire at it. Did it burn up? Okay, back off your power. Did it not leave a mark? Increase your power. It's just a little bit easier to get into the lasers, I think, without having quite as many failures. But they both have definitely some advantages and drawbacks. So it's going to fall back to what you really want to do, and or like me, I had a friend who had a CNC router. I got into CNC routing first. that
Yeah.
that helps a lot is when you've got someone to kind of coach you along. Kind of get into what they're doing, get your feet wet with it first, and then maybe expand from there.
Yeah. Well, I've got a friend of mine. He's a. Well, I use this term just so he's not currently active, but he's a former Marine, and he got out of the Marine Corps and started a welding shop. And he has a plasma, and I send all the plasma jobs to him. So I really don't have a need for one. Plus, you want to talk about expensive materials. Uh, Buy a sheet of quarter-inch plate, or even eighth inch. That's when you get into some expensive materials. He has like I said, he does welding, so he uses it to cut out parts for building. Like he can literally cut you out a bumper for your vehicle and weld it up and put it on there if you want, like one of those off-road bumpers or whatnot. And so I send him anybody that wants something that has to be done with a plasma. I send it to him. So I really don't have any need for one because if I needed it, he's done told me if I'll come down there because his wife actually runs the machine because he's not the most computer savvy person. So his wife usually winds up doing it, but he's told me anytime I want to come down, I can come down there and make my file, bring it, and use it, and pay for the materials or whatever. But I do hear that they go through tips a lot.
Hmm.
I'm guessing just because of going in and out of the cut so much. But he says he was telling me the other day that pretty much if a job takes more than so many minutes, you might as well go ahead and count for a tip as far as part of your expenditures. But
Interesting.
I got to see his run, but I haven't ever played with it. But I mean, it's a like I said, if I could just send it a G code, which is it's basically the same as the Shapoco as far as that goes. They run theirs with a computer, and it cuts out just like a regular CNC. Only difference is there's a lot of sparks, and there's water underneath it to keep from catching everything on fire. So,
Yeah, our welding program at the college is getting a new plasma table. So I've been working with the facilities director on making sure we've got all the. Uh, there's it's surprising they'll get a donation of a plasma table in this case, and the amount of time and money we have to spend preparing the space for it from power and data and electrical and software and whatnot. You're like, boy, this sure was a nice donation that we spent a lot of money on. But it's a cool tool, and the students will really enjoy it, and I'll get a chance. I mean, I can't use it myself. I can learn a little bit on it, but in a state institution, there's definitely rules against improper use of stuff for personal gain. But yeah, it's something there. It's nice to have a friend that has one kind of tool.
oh yeah. Burn Car Print is asking if you only had the choice of two lasers and you already have a diode laser, what would the other one be? A CO2, the F, or the F1 type? If you only had a choice of two and you already had a diode, the next, I would say probably from my perspective, because I look at which ones I can make the most stuff with, I would probably have to have a CO2 next. The fiber is handy, but there's not too many things that I can't do with a CO2 that a fiber can do. So I would probably go with a CO2 because acrylics and you know stuff like that would be more of a go-to for me than the metal, I think. What about you, Steve? What would your pick be?
Yeah, that is a kind of an interesting question and a little tough to answer in that realm because you can do a lot. You can play with a lot of acrylics, but you're going to get hung up on certain colors and the clear and transparent ones a bit. So that's where a CO2 is definitely going to shine. Also, if you're doing a lot of production, the CO2 may help you speed up your processes, and so there's definitely some good options there. But to go to something completely different, if you've really kind of tapped out what your market is there, getting into some of the metal stuff. Now, if you're going to go to the extent of getting like a real high power, 60 watt or higher, galvo, like a MOPA galvo that you can do some deep engravings, 3D engravings in a metal, then that kind of opens up a whole new world of different things you can do. And so you're kind of branching out into a whole new direction. Whereas the acrylic, definitely there's a lot of things you could do with that. But it might be similar to what you're currently doing. I don't know. I guess it's
Well,
going to go
my
back to that
second
adage of it depends because,
Yeah, my second reason for getting a CO2 is because I usually run two or three machines at a time cutting out wood projects.
mhm.
And so I can't waste, if I can only have two machines, it's got to be capable of cutting wood because that's where my money's at.
Yeah, and that's kind of the what I was just kind of getting at is that it really depends on what are you looking to do more of what you're currently doing, or are you looking to expand into something that maybe you're not doing, and that might weigh spin you one way or the other. So I would say don't have the limitation. Use your current laser to be able to buy the next one, and then use those two to buy the third one.
Yeah, and just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting a machine that you have no market to sell things off of it, it's just going to become a cost. it's not going to profit you. So you've got to make sure that whatever you get, you have a plan on how you're either going to enjoy it and just have it as a hobby, or you're going to be able to produce things to sell to offset having to buy it, depending on your situation. But my situation is I want my tools to help me buy more tools. And so I have to make sure I have a market for it and that I'm capable of generating revenue with that machine. So,
And I mean, in my case, it definitely depends on where your business goes. I mean, I used to do a lot of production of, I was making lots of airplane stands, lots of glue caddies, a lot of the same things that I wouldn't say mass producing, but I was batching out a lot of the same things to restock my stores, ship out mail orders, go to my, flying events and sell there. Whereas now I do a lot of more like personal customized products and projects. And so that's where the CO2, that the diodes are actually giving me a little more flexibility in the wood. And, their finer spot size and some of their simplicity over the CO2, I use them a lot more for that than I do the CO2. So, in that scenario, I might not even buy the CO2. I might go, what's a better diode laser to let me be more productive
what's a bigger
with,
diode?
you know?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And that's why it was, like I said, I've got 2 enclosures with diodes in them right here. I mean,
Yeah.
because those are what has got me to where I am now as far as selling stuff. See ya, V. Good night, Cody. If you're leaving, Cody, we're not going to be far behind you because I got to get some sleep. I got to work tomorrow.
Yeah, we're getting close to that 2 hours there.
That's
So
right. Hour and 47 minutes.
people have another question they want to shoot out for us. Let us know. We'll try to fit them in.
Rob, somebody is going to figure out a way to argue with me about this, but my short answer is no. I have not been able to make a decent cut on white acrylic with any diode laser I've ever had. Now you can melt your way through it eventually, but you run a big risk of starting a fire, and you're not going to get nice clean edges on it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, no, I would say the same. I mean, I don't have it handy, but there's this 3 millimeter white foam, Depron foam and such that I've used a lot with my model airplanes. It cuts like butter with the CO2. It cuts very easily with a razor blade. It's not dense and heavy like the acrylic is. I put that in a diode laser. All it does is start flashing blue, and you can't even tell the laser touched it at all. Similar with acrylic. I mean, you can put a coating on it and start working your way through it, but it's going to be a struggle if you get any at all. So, it's got to have a binder. It's got to have something to interact with, and so you can get through a little bit by painting it, but no, it's not gonna do much there. That's one of those cases where, yep, a CO2 is your friend.
Yeah, because like see that nice clean edge right there that looks like it was made that way or sanded really smoothly. That's a CO2. It doesn't matter what color the acrylic is, you're going to get that smooth edge. One single pass at about 20 millimeters a second, and this stuff drops with a CO2. Red is one of those colors that you can cut with a diode. Most reds that I've tried with a diode, I can cut, but it usually takes a couple of passes, and you're going to be able to see on the end of it where you made those passes, because it's going to have those lines where those passes overlapped. But just like with this stuff here, this is clear acrylic with like glitter in it. CO2 just tears through it, and you can see nice smooth cuts. You could not do this with a diode, because one, you've got all these little blue flakes in there that are going to reflect every bit of your laser out of the cut. So if you're wanting to do acrylics, you're definitely going to want to stick with a CO2. I don't do a lot of acrylics and haven't over the years, but now that I've got a machine that eats this stuff for lunch, I'm looking at getting more into it, doing earrings and whatnot, because I can take this. There's Fluffy. What's up, Fluff? She she uses the roller as a step. But but I can take this acrylic and make earrings and stuff out of it. And this little tiny piece of acrylic with a little bit of hardware, I can make a couple of bucks. So that's what I'm fixing to get into next is more acrylic stuff now that I have the means to cut it. Uh, and of course, nowadays you can get acrylics that have all kinds of like this is a gold mirrored acrylic. So it's just it opens up a whole nother uh, parts mix for you. And I've got to where I use acrylic a lot to build things. Oh, yeah, that's right. Uh-huh. Check out that. It looks red on the camera, but that's actually orange, Steve.
Oh, yeah, I can tell.
But I've got to where I use it to make a lot of my permanent fixtures and stuff like that instead of wood. Especially if I'm going to be using it with a diode laser because the risk of me accidentally cutting that with a diode is real slim.
Sure. Yeah.
Now I can engrave orange and I can sometimes cut orange, but it's not going to be easy if the beam's out of focus or anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if acrylic's your game, you'll be much happier with a CO2. But there's a lot you can do with diodes. You just got to pick your colors and your acrylic carefully, and you can still work with a number of it. But
Yeah.
it's gonna be limiting. So
Yeah, black works really well with most diodes that I've used. Now you still have to go slow, and some of it you may have to make a couple of passes, but black works pretty well. Uh,
well, and make sure it's acrylic and not polycarbonate.
yeah,
I I actually had a laser. I can't remember which one, but one of the companies sent their material pack, and it had like a I don't know, it's like a 4-inch square piece of acrylic. I thought, oh, great, I'll be able to do some test cuts with it. I tried it on multiple lasers, and every time I'm like, why is this just it would just kind of bubble the top, and yeah, pretty sure that was polycarbonate, not acrylic. Because then I'd swap it out for some of my known cast acrylic, and it would just cut clean through it like butter. So
yeah,
make sure the stuff you're getting it from is good acrylic, not something else.
yeah.
Definitely not anything vinyl.
Hello there, Mr. Republic. Jim says he's on a campaign now to paint it orange. Hey, I have been toying with the idea. The one thing that I was waiting on though was to get the machine in there and make sure I had the table configured the way I wanted it configured before I painted it.
Sure.
Because I didn't want to paint it and then take it apart and then have to repaint it because there's still going to be lines and things that aren't going to line up like it needs to be. But it's probably coming. But that would mean I'd have to shut my CNC down for a couple of days or shut my
Yeah.
shop down for a couple of days because the orange paint that I've got takes a while to dry.
Well, just get it in the paint bomb variety. Close the doors, set it off, and come back when it's dry. Everything will be orange. Maybe make sure the cats are outside and close their door.
Yeah. Uh, Michael, I haven't really had a problem. Everything that I cut or engrave or work with on all the other machines, uh, I haven't had any problems with any kind of consistency in it. It does a really good job on my stove covers, and that's what it spends most of the time doing. Uh, it makes pine really, really black and really, really deep, really, really fast. So that's kind of what I needed in it.
Um,
Yeah, hobo.
yeah, you got that.
Yeah, it definitely could be, in my opinion. What do you think, Steve?
If it's I've cut both because it's really easy to buy extruded acrylic locally. Most big box stores, that's what they have versus the cast. And they sell usually both clear as well as like a white and a black is what I've found. The thing that the cast does, or that the extruded versus the cast is it'll tend to crack and you'll get little microfractures, especially if you add, like an adhesive to it, versus the cast that will kind of stay smooth. I don't know. I guess that my experience though with that has been more on CO2s. I'm not sure on the diodes. I'd have to maybe find some extruded black acrylic and try running it in the diode and see if I get a difference. But it could be, but I don't. I think it would be more that it's not a true acrylic. Like I say, I've run into problems where it's like a polycarbonate and such, and it's just it'll get through it, but it is a jagged, ugly mess. So.
Yeah, I accidentally ordered some extruded one time, and I'm guessing because the way that extruded is kind of pushed through slit or whatever, and it's under pressure, I guess you could say, as opposed to with the cast, the way they manufacture it. But like you said, it did crack a lot easier, and it actually seemed like it was a little more resistant. Now, I don't remember. I don't remember. I think there was some black in the pack too, but I did determine then that point forward, I was going to try to get cast over extruded, and I may still have some. Yeah,
That'd
it
be
was. I got it. I got it from my buddy at CNC Trophy Shop. He was cutting it with an actual cutter, using it for like backends in plaques and stuff. They were cutting it with a actual physical cutting machine as opposed to a laser, and I could not cut through it at all. I still got some of it over there because I didn't throw it away just in case the CO2 would cut it. But it was black, but I could not cut through it whatsoever. Like it would just, it seemed like it would melt it, but it wouldn't make a clean cut. And if it ever
Yeah.
did try to cut through it, it would like melt back together behind the laser beam.
Yeah.
So it could be,
Interesting.
but it also could be other stuff as well. Focus is kind of important with acrylic. I try to center my focus to the center of the material.
Yep.
With
Yep.
diode anyway.
Well, as with anything, always try to order factor into your cost some practice material to get your settings, to get it figured out. Even if it's a known material of a serious or a similar place, but maybe a new source, you're probably going to want some extra just to make sure things are the same. But
Sharon, if you're using X Tools acrylic or some decent acrylic, the problem and this just sounds counterintuitive, but the problem may be you're going too slow. Because I will tell you with acrylic, if you go too slow, like I said, it will heat up to the point to where as the beam passes it, it's still at its melting point and it will stick back together behind the laser. And if you look, you'll have a line on the top and a line on the bottom, but it won't come apart because it's actually welding itself back together behind the cut. So you may actually want to try speeding it up. If you're using a D1 20 watt, then I want to say 3 passes was usually what I would run, but I would do like 12 millimeters a second at 100% and 3 passes on black to make sure it didn't seal behind the cut. Because if you go too slow, it'll get too hot and it doesn't cool in time before the material like closes back on itself. So you may actually need to speed up, which sounds counterintuitive when it's not cutting, but with acrylic, I have had that happen to where it just welds itself back together.
yep.
All right, guys, about 2 hours into it. So any last minute questions, concerns, comments, pokes at Steve, go ahead and throw those out there. Notice I didn't say any at me because Brian's been on me tonight.
Yeah. Well, got to have someone in my corner.
Oh, well, now, Sharon, if you're using it as a P2, using an excuse to get a P2, well, then absolutely. If you can't cut acrylic, you need to go buy a P2. I hope that helps.
Well, you get the right bit, you can cut it with a CNC router as well.
Yeah, a zero flute. I've been doing my research just so where I can play around with some later. I've been looking for some of that composite wood that's not wood,
Oh yeah.
that PVC-ish stuff.
Yep.
I can't find any of it anywhere around here except for 2x2 pieces for door trim.
I think Home Depot might stock it or be able to special order it depending on your store.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's not cheap, but for making outdoor sign type stuff and whatnot, and it's very very smooth and clean to to mill out. So nice material to have, but it's not cheap.
Yeah. Well, I was looking for like a 2x10 of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I see it more in the 4x8 sheets.
Yeah. Well, my buddy up at the sign shop, he said he can get a lot of
Yeah, there
different
you go.
materials. So, and he gets his in 4x8 sheets. So, I may check with him and see what all other kind of materials he can get. But I would like some of that, the plastic weather resistant stuff or whatever for outdoor use.
Yep.
But anyway, there. See, I told you, it's just constantly.
Well, well. Anyway, we've definitely rolled over 2 hours now, and we want to make sure you get your beauty rest for work, because that's important for your job.
Yeah. Well, I started a countdown the other day. I think I sent it to you, didn't I?
You mentioned something about it.
It was like 500 and something days. But yeah, I currently still got to go to work tomorrow, guys. So unfortunately, we can't stay home and play with the CNC tomorrow or the lasers. But I would love to. I would absolutely love to. So what you got coming up, Steve? Anything special other than if the A70s show up this week?
I got some project videos I was hoping to work on now that I got the X tools set up nicely here. They, gosh, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was within the past week or so. Adam Stack did give, I think, both of us an update on those X70s that we might see them within, I think they said 10 days or so. So hopefully we're maybe halfway through that. We might see them this week. So that'll be coming up. And I may have another small Galvo style laser waiting to find out to see if that's coming through. So, but trying to spread those out. I got a number of projects. I was glad I got the the exhaust stuff worked out. That was kind of a nice thing to do, and drop that video out there. And I'm going to continue on with a few of the other projects that I've been working on, making more hopefully some project videos that can inspire people to play around as well. So I don't need an AC today. It was actually very cold, but it is on the list. And so that was part of cleaning out this side of the shop as well to make it easier for me to bring someone in and hopefully take a look at that. And although I was watching some weather things, they're saying we're going to flip from El Nino to La Nina, which usually means a cooler summer for us. So I may stretch out my frugality on putting that off for a bit longer. But I don't know. I've got more things to go in the shop, and also I see a few of you did put your names in the form, so I did just update the map. Hopefully those dropped, and we're sitting at just under 400 pins on that map. So if you haven't done that, hit that form up, get your pin on the map. We'll be over 400 members listed on there as well. But otherwise, I will hopefully have some more stuff out this week. I'm trying to get caught back up. I've had just a number of things keeping me out of the shop and being as productive, but I'm going to get some more stuff rolling out of here moving forward.
Well, I can tell you because the past week we've had a couple of days that were up in the 80s here. Getting my back wall done, my mini split thanks me. So does my power bill. The temperatures stay much more constant. There's not a lot of ups and downs like there was before. So hopefully I'll be comfortable this summer and be able to do some cool stuff with the machines. Like I said, the 70 watt, waiting to see that thing in action. See whether Adam Stack has went a direction that I like, or if they've went a direction I don't. Because we know that Acer was once like king in my opinion, and then they took a step the wrong direction and lost me. So let's hope Adam Stack doesn't do that as well. But I did a lot of working on machines this past week or two, because between the S1 and then, like I said, the MK2, that was actually the most painless problem I've ever had. I just simply sent an email, hey, machine's not responding. They said, check this, try this, try that. I did it, tried flashing firmware, no results. Next thing I get is your new board will be there in 2 days. So
Very nice.
2 days later, got a new board. Luckily, I was able to get it in there without tearing anything else up, and we're back in business. The S1 is still awaiting a board, which I didn't know it, but it has 3, by the way. Yeah, it's got one for the laser, one for the Wi-Fi, and one for the main control board. But yeah, so let's hope they send me the right one.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear. I mean, that's one thing that you and I don't always experience is,
Yeah.
if there's an issue with the machine, I know I've seen it on my channel and others like, oh, I had this problem and it's a pain working with support. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I mean, unless you have a problem with your machine, you don't necessarily get to experience that. And you have now
Yeah.
with a couple of them, and had a really great experience with Lasermatic, it sounds like.
Yeah,
They following through on
X2,
it.
there was a little more. There was a little more, like jumping through hoops, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying this, trying that, letting them get into the machine and look at it themselves, that kind of thing. So, but there again, that's my 4th or 5th X tool, and it's the first time I've had one go down. And like I said, could it have been a lightning strike, a you know spark of like static electricity? It could have been a number of things, but I'm pretty confident it was something happened with the communications during the firmware upgrade, and I think it just zonked it instead of updating the firmware. I think it zeroed the board, and before the software could install, connection got interrupted and it bricked it. I know if you've ever played with like Android operating systems and stuff like that before, jailbreaking phones, it doesn't take a whole lot to brick one.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so hopefully that'll get it back going. But in the meantime, luckily, I got extras, so work won't be piling up. Do got a lot of stuff to get out this week. I think I'm up to 14 stove covers this week and 6 cutting boards. So gonna be a busy day, busy week for the X40 for sure. But until next time, guys, y'all, I appreciate y'all coming. Thanks for stopping by. Brian pointed out it's been a year and he still finds us entertaining, thankfully. Uh, we try to mix it up, bring some new content, bring some new stuff. I did let Steve talk me into getting this little guy, and so far it's pretty cool. I do think it's going to wind up in my office because they keep asking me to mark stuff at work, so that might be a good fit for that.
You gonna be all vented out there somehow?
Oh yeah,
All right.
I'll work it out. Hey, worst case scenario, most of the stuff's going to be metal, so we'll put a scrubber on the end of it and go. But anyway, y'all have a good night, I guess, sir. Until
Yeah.
next Sunday.
We'll see you next week.
Later, guys.